I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
You know, Bumhouse, you may get lucky sometimes. This was one of the multiple fucking attempts where you didn't. And you know, this was clearly a project that was doomed from the start. Because, well, before I even get into all of that why, it's Dodgy Corleone here, and I'm here with the first release of 2025. First review of 2025, and wow, look at that. Because it's January, we have to start with a Bumhouse movie. Of course. Always. Always gotta start off every year now with this. A horror film from Bumhouse. And of course, it's going to be for 2025's Wolfman. Another Wolfman remake. So, pretty much, when I had heard about this being made, I was not too excited. But when it comes to Wolfman as a whole, I have not seen the original, but I have seen the 2010 film. And I'm going to be honest. I guess I can't see where people are coming from when they say they don't like that film, but I have seen that movie, and I don't think it's that bad as many make it out to be. Because, for one, I'm familiar with the story of the Wolfman, and at the very least, the Wolfman 2010 was actually familiar, or actually felt like the Wolfman story. That felt more like an actual werewolf movie. At the very least. Or at least it tried to be actually be like the actual story. This is a film that just seemed doomed to begin with all the production troubles, and the Wolfman's design looks terrible as fuck. I'll get to that later, but I'm going to say the production first, and then I'll say the plot. Well, this film was actually announced in 2014 and was going to be part of a dark universe. This cinematic universe of all the Universal monsters. David Calham and Aaron Gazikowski were attached to write the script. Then, the shitty Mummy film with Tom Cruise released in 2017, and it flopped. Because nobody wanted to watch it. So Universal shifted the focus to standalone films. Then around 2020, before the pandemic, the director had released a Universal monster film, pretty much his version of The Invisible Man, and it was successful. And it rekindled Universal's interest in making more Universal monsters, so they ran into more production troubles again. There was going to be a pitch by Ryan Gosling with Derek Cianfrance. Both were going to do, and Ryan Gosling was going to star in a Wolfman movie, but Cianfrance left the project in 2023, Gosling dropped out of the role, but remained as executive producer while Leigh Whannell took over as director with a new cast. Then, this filming for this occurred in New Zealand early 2024. What is pretty much the plot of this movie? Well, the plot is not even the actual Wolfman story. We had a new story this time, and a more modern story, where this family, because a lot of Bumhouse movies, they gotta be a family. They always gotta be a family every time. They go to a remote farmhouse, and they get attacked by an unseen animal. Then the night stretches on. The father begins to transform into something unrecognizable. A werewolf. Because it's called the Wolfman. But after this movie was shot and marketed, Wolfman finally got to be released in the United States last week on January 17, 2025 to kick off 2025. This film has gotten mixed reviews from people and has bombed opening weekend. Which, my reaction, I'm not surprised. I went to watch this, just got back from seeing this. How was it? Well, guess what? Was this film scary? No. Was this film interesting? No. Was it well written? Not really. Were the characters great? No. Was the film boring as hell? Yes. Were the jump scares shit? Yes. And was it disappointing compared to Invisible Men, which I liked? Yeah. This was clearly a film that was just doomed from the start. It's clear Jason Blum only got Leigh Whannell to do this movie because The Invisible Man was a huge hit. And so they just wanted to try to repeat that again with this. So they got Leigh Whannell to direct this. Now, I decently like Leigh Whannell as a director. Don't get me wrong. He has actually directed quite a few good films. The Invisible Man I liked Insidious Chapter 3. He's a pretty good director. But this movie was probably his least good. Like, I did not like this film at all. And I would rather watch 2010 over this any day. Because that was actually Wolfman. You could tell that actually had a reason to be called the Wolfman. This, it's werewolves, but this barely felt Wolfman at all. And this Wolfman did not even look like an actual werewolf. I get they're trying to go for The Fly 1986. Apparently they're trying to go for that kind of design, but except like the Fly was the 1986 Fly was a remake, except even that was more original, and the monster still looked like a creature. This werewolf just looks like some crackhead that took a bunch of crack, or just if a werewolf took a bunch of crack. This new approach on the Wolfman, it's not amazing, it's not revolutionary. Well, the movie does kind of, I guess, try to be interesting at times with some of the direction, the camera work, and the atmosphere. Like, Whannell, like, I can tell Whannell really knows how direction horror works, like, especially when he did some of the Saw films, Insidious, like Insidious 3, The Invisible Man, has really proven his talents. This narrative about the Wolfman isn't really new at all. It's still got a lot of horror cliches of characters and concepts that are not grand, nor unique, nor special. Maybe, I guess I like that they did try to do a new story. I like that, but what they did here just did not come off great at all. And some of the tone and camera work may be stellar, but maybe some solid horror moments. And I guess some decent special effects, but the characters were just not interesting. The family I barely gave a shit about. These were not interesting characters in my eyes. So it's hard to kind of really root for them. Like there's times when the parents come off as like rude. Like in the opening, kind of like the opening bits and stuff. Like the mom just comes off as a bland character. So I didn't really care much for the characters in this film. We start off in 1995 where this hiker's vanishing in a remote mountain sparks the speculation about a virus, because now the werewolf in this is pretty much now a virus linked to a wildfire. So during a hunting trip in the area, Blake Lovell and his stern father Grady, they spot this creature lurking in the forest and they hide in a treehouse. For a while, and the dad's being rude to his son and often yelling at him at times, and pretty much he bought him on this whole hunting trip. Like, if your son's not going to listen to you, why'd you bring him on this hunting trip in the first place? But pretty much, because they're hunting for a deer. And so they don't really get successful, so they just go home. And then we get to present day, which is obviously this current year. Blake's now grown up. He's living in San Francisco with his daughter Ginger and his workaholic wife Charlotte. Like his father, he struggles to control his temper, and it causes a strain on his marriage. Like during the first scene, him and his daughter are going home from a museum. She wants ice cream, but the dad says no to that, because apparently he bought her hot chocolate at the museum. The daughter tries to protest that that's a drink, but he clearly knows that it also counts as somewhat of a dessert. And then she walks on these rails. He gets mad about that. Then she bumps into this druggie who pretty much yells at her. And then the dad tells him to piss off, and then he yells at her for not listening. And actually, to get her down, he uses the no ice cream in 3, 2, 1 code to get her down. There, and so then they get home, and then we meet this bland wife of his. Then one day he finds out Grady has gone missing, and there's a death certificate, and he got the keys to his childhood home. So he decides, let's go relocate to my childhood home so he can repair his relationship. That's where you know how the film's going to go from there. Like, the film's aspects are disappointing, and the creature design, I'll get more to that when I talk about the finale, is uninspired at all. The transformation scenes, have such subpar special effects and poor lighting. The cinematography is even dark, and obscures some crucial action scenes, and it diminishes the impact, and there's often an over-reliance on loud as hell sound effects to create tension, to the point where it just got repetitive and just not even effective at all. Like, there's times when I knew an obvious jump scare was going to come. If you're going to have a bunch of loud special effects, it's just going to give it away. I thought the whole point of being scary is to remain mysterious. Oh, well, the transfer to the wolf and the wolf's looks were just bad. It's like here, maybe they had the right idea, but what they got was barely a werewolf. Yeah, once again, I know the director wanted to make the wolf like The Fly 1986, but The Fly 1986 idea does not work on a Wolfman movie. And the classic Wolf was just much better. Hell, The Fly 1986 even was a better movie than this. And when it comes to the performances by the main protagonists, the kid actor wasn't bad. The two adults, they just felt bland. They were not interesting at all. I know, then again, the actors only did as much with the script as they could get, but instead of, trying to make, more outspoken characters to try and make the movie work, we don't get that at all. It just lacked the key element that makes, films like The Fly 1986, really well done, was caring about the characters. It was a tragic film, but he had good characters you cared about. You liked Jeff Goldblum's character. You liked Gian Davis's character. They were well written. Our main protagonist, Christopher Abbott's character, he's just moody and grumpy most of the film, has too many anger issues, and the opening scene. The mother, she's bland, comes off as rude in her first scenes, and pretty much has just the emotional range of a door. Oh, and also, yeah, there's gore in the movie, but there's a lack of gore. Guys, the reason I'm not over-raging at this is because, well, it's still a rant, but I'm not over-raging at this because, for one, the film still had decent special effects. The film at least didn't try to just repeat the Wolfman story a third time. I'll give credit for that. But it was still a bad film. I just still did not like the film. It didn't really have that high of a body count. There's gore, but the gore was just barely there. It's like they try to play way too safe for this, and the film like should have had more gorier kills. If it's a Wolfman movie, shouldn't you try to be a little more gory? Now, so our three leads go on the road. They seek directions and encounter this local named Derek, who leads them to the house as the sun sets. But just as they arrive, this creature drives them off the road, scratches Blake's arm, and drags Derek away when Derek tries to escape, but falls to the ground because of where his car door is. So Blake frantically leads his family to the house. They turn on the generator, and they barricade the entrance to protect them from this monster outside. His arm is now bloody infected, and once they're inside, and Blake is starting to show signs of the infection where he loses a tooth, he's sweating like crazy, and experiences noise. So he hears the creature outside, and he puts his ear to a side door, but the monster and then grabs his foot. It clearly injures his foot through the pet door. So he's much injured, more infected further. But Charlotte manages to stop it by hitting with a hammer. And then after this, Charlotte starts to grow worried when Blake loses motor functions, his ability to speak and to be able to understand her, and his hair starts to fall out. More teeth and more fingernails do as well. And fainted talons start growing out, and his vision becomes distorted as all. And then, of course, we get to pretty much the process where the fur grows on his body, and Blake gnaws at his arm because his arm is starting to show pain, and so Charlotte is frightened by this. Then Charlotte spots a rundown car outside and goes to jumpstart it, but just as they can get away, the creature then shows up, smashes their windshield, and so they have to go to a greenhouse where then Blake signals Charlotte to take Ginger back to the house, and he goes to pretty much try to sacrifice himself and make the monster follow him. Like, oh my god, like, this creature did not feel like a werewolf. Like, werewolves usually have a lot of human attributes than more wolf or werewolves are more wolf than man, and like, there's nothing about the creatures in this movie on that kind of scale, or much of a lore either. You just get a text saying some like animal-born virus is causing these wolf people this. Like, that's pretty much that. And the natives have a phrase for this whole animal virus. Like, it was clearly like just some simple virus movie over this whole like trying to be like a werewolf film. It's like, yeah, I know I'm kind of starting with this whole review. It's hard to really know what this movie was even supposed to be about. It's like, it wasn't about hiding the whole twist that the dad was clearly going to still be alive and pretty much just became the wild creature. Like, that was all, like, you could tell that was going to happen I could tell that was going to happen from the start. Right there, it's clear that dad was not dead. But more on that later. And the plot just moves along when it just tries to be convenient. And the characters do things like just exclusively so the plot can move forward. So some scenes just feel forced and manufactured. And, of course, it's really hard to feel anything for these characters because they're blandly written, they're not well developed. Or either they're just sometimes too grumpy, or don't have much emotional range. Like, there just wasn't really that emotion added to the scenes. When they try to be emotional, I just feel nothing, because I just don't really care for any of these people. Like, and also, apparently, like, in this movie, these monsters die quick. One gets killed by a gunshot, and a bite to the neck kills another. What? Like, oh my god. So apparently, like, the movie tells us these locals tried for years to hunt these things and always fail or die. But then, of course, a random person can shoot one once and kill within a minute. Or one chews their leg off with minimal pain. or just perishes at a small rifle shot. So why didn't they just shoot it in the first place? That makes no fucking sense. So anyway, Blake is now deformed and he's now limping. And he ends up vomiting out a finger. And he approaches Charlotte, which only scares the both of them. Both her and the daughter. And he realizes he put them in danger, so he decides to leave and go into hiding in the woods, but the creature comes back, attacks them. So Blake puts himself between the monster and his family, and he bites the creature's neck, and the creature is dead. And then, of course, in the obvious twist, it turns out the creature he killed is his infected father. So he runs outside, and the final stages of the transformation are taking hold, so he can't control himself, and he attacks his family, and they flee to a barn. Like most of the film is literally just them in a house. Most of the film. Like, they're basically in this whole house. Like, this movie just takes place in one night. Like, there was, like, other than, like, the final bits, there just wasn't much action at all. Well, a lot of it was just really dialogue heavy and not really that good chemistry dialogue. And scenes like this is 103 minutes, I mean. I meant to say that. And this film even sometimes felt longer than that. Once again, I appreciate the different approach and the transformation scene being an entire movie and all. Like, I appreciate some things being done differently. The problem is that a too long nothing, and it just becomes really boring. Like, this film was like 103 minutes, and this film felt boring as hell. You just move from one attempted crazy thing to the next attempted crazy thing. The mom actress even, like, not only does the mom character have emotional personality of a door, the actress looks bored throughout the film and lacks any type of charisma. The characters even talk like they're not even in most of the film. And of course, after our main lead chews on his own arm and changes looks like just believe that he's sick. Like, no! If he's chewing off his fucking arm, that does not look sick. That does not spell sick in my eyes. That's clearly something worse. Get it through your head. And then, of course, when they try to block the front door so the wolf creature can't get in, and apparently, like, they don't have much reaction to being able to get through the back door, which they even constantly use in the film. So they're not even surprised that the werewolf can actually go through the back door that they basically go out throughout most of the film whenever they try to leave the house. And the car just magically showed up outside, and she just happens to know that it needs just a car battery to start without even trying to start it up herself even. Yeah, when the mom finds that car. Like, wow. Because, like, its rundown car obviously needs a new battery. Like, every little detail in the film is just left unexplored. Like, we know, like, when we start off, like, the main character's father was gone for ages, was declared dead. We never know why, but apparently somehow he lived in this house. And it gets explained that this myth is pretty much what the local natives know about. And apparently he has no idea after living in this whole house. God damn, man. Makes no... whatever. But anyway, guys, now we're on to the finale and how this all ends. So, after Charlotte and Ginger, they go into the barn. Blake claws his way in and uses his newfound night vision to sneak towards them in the dark. He gets caught by a bear trap that was laid down by Charlotte. He chews off his foot to escape and goes pursuing after Charlotte and Ginger. So they flee to this forest and they hide in a treehouse, but Blake climbs up and Charlotte points a rifle at him. Like, This was almost the same exact ending as The Fly. They just literally almost repeat the ending of The Fly with this movie. Like that. She realizes her husband is in pain and wants to die, and they share a final look, and Blake lunges and Charlotte shoots him dead, and the mom and daughter hug each other and cry. Like, literally, that was the last scene from the 1986 Fly. Like, Jeff Goldblum's character was now mutated now and wanted to be put out of his misery. Gina Davis shoots him, and then she breaks down crying. Doesn't that sound familiar? That sounds totally familiar. Same ending as that better movie. The emotional aspect of that movie, though, was earned. Why it worked so well. But other than that, like, then they just stare off into this landscape like they don't have a van now, so where are they going to go? How in the world are they supposed to get back home? Like, they're in the middle of nowhere. I don't see a lot of cars. They're in the middle of a forest or middle of a landscape. But the credits just roll like that. Charlotte and Ginger are still alive. Blake, though, is not, and he's dead. The end. Just like that. Okay. As terrible as I thought this movie was, do I have good qualities for the film? Well, yeah. They did a new kind of approach. I'll give credit for that. The effects were pretty good. Definitely. The practical effects, were good. Not the wolf's design. Definitely not. The crackhead wolf. And yeah, I guess the idea of making a one transformation scene could have worked. If it was written a little better than what we got here. There was one great chase scene, but other than that, the film just kind of repeats the chase scene more and more and more. Other than like the repeated chase scene, like the finale, there's not much else action-wise. Other than those, this film still sucked ass. It's not worth overly raging about. Because, like, I wasn't really too hyped for this film, to be honest. But, like, this should not be called The Wolfman. Like, this was clearly a troubled plan from the start. If they had trouble doing this movie for a long time, then they just should have not did it or just called it something else. Because this does not feel like The Wolfman. None of this felt Wolfman in my eyes. It's a werewolf movie, but it's sure gonna feel like Wolfman. So in the end, yeah, I would just avoid Wolfman 2025 and just go watch either 2010 or the 1941 original if you've seen it. It's if you want a proper Wolfman portrayal, because this is not even a Wolfman movie to begin with. It feels like something else entirely. Anyways, guys, that's it for my rant on Wolfman 2025. If we're going to rank Wolfman 2025, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you love the Wolfman creature and love werewolves, you're going to get no kick out of this movie at all, so you can so avoid this because all this is yet another shitty January horror film. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Wolfman 2025, I'm going to give Wolfman 2025 a 3.5 out of 10. Damn, here we go. Now, tell me down in the comments what you thought of Wolfman 2025. Whether you liked this movie, or whether you hated it, or just found it disappointing. Man, this is expected for January. You always gotta have a bad horror film. Until then, guys, that'll be it for this rant. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.